And welcome to Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian here with Larry and Spencer, and we're going to be talking about American Horror Story, Season 10, Episode number 5. The episode's called Gaslight. I know why it's called that. I'm thinking the scene with Alma and her mother, but it should have been called Baby Blood. This is another episode where I was like, I have a better name for the episode title. Um, this was a great episode, guys. I complained a little bit about last week, and I stand by what I said. But this episode, I mean, it was a little longer than the last episodes by like 15, 20 minutes. And it was basically, leading to what somewhat going to be the season finale, sort of, before we go into the second half of Double Feature. But yeah, man, everything sort of played out. Some story arcs wrapped up, and we're leading into, that finale where we're basically, I'm assuming, going to have Ursula and her crew versus the chemist and her crew. And yeah, what were your general thoughts on this episode? I loved it.
Yeah. And we talked about it last week, some of the gripes I had. And last week, it wasn't an awful episode. It was just slow, kind of took me out of it. But this is the kind of episode that I was expecting last week. And this, there was so much stuff that I did not see coming in this episode that, like you said, the feeding on the baby part. Like, it's one of those things where I anticipated the baby not making it, but I did not anticipate the things that happened. And it was one little turn after another, and how they shot I don't remember the mom's name, but how they shot her Doris, how they shot her changing, and Ursula, how dynamic Ursula is, where she's not taking any of the pills, but oh boy, is she Geppetto over here, because she's just puppet mastering everybody, and it's crazy to see the dynamic, and I've really enjoyed this week.
Yeah, it was firing on all cylinders this week. There's just so much going on, and the pacing was good. And we wondered, like, what would the lead up be to the end? Given that things were moving so fast. But this was a really good segue. And I'm glad you brought up the part about Doris too, because not Doris. What's the agent's name? Ursula, yeah. Because I'm curious about that. Like, is she taking the pills now? Like, given her ego, because I wonder. I'm like it didn't seem like she had any plans to take it, but she's the type of person that I imagine has a pretty big ego and sees herself as talented. So there's no way she wouldn't be taking.
What if managing is her talent? And yeah, maybe she's taking the pill and she's like even better at managing. I mean, you might be right.
Yeah, because the way she talks down to people, like management and manipulation, is an art to her in some ways. The way she goes about it.
The only reason I think she's not is just because she is so good. I think that she sees herself in such this immaculate light that she is the best, and clearly she is, because even before the pill, when Belle Noire and all them were like threatening her, she's like, "Fuck you guys!" Like, she has zero fear. She did not,
and she figured out something was going on. She was able to put all that together.
So, what she's able to do by herself, I think that she wouldn't take it just because she already feels like, she's like, what do I need that for? I think that she already is so self-absorbed and so full of herself that she wouldn't feel the need to take it.
She thinks she is the apex.
Yeah.
Apex of what she is without the damn pill.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump to someone who isn't. Let's go into Doris. And man, not only did that actress do a great job, she took the pill, and obviously she wasn't talented. She became a pill person, but I want to focus on Alma, the daughter. Like, man, there's a lot of great horror films in history where there's sort of the, the evil child, or, the child that's sort of the villain, if you will. But holy shit. Like, when she's on the bed and she's just like, Mom, you're so talented, and be like me and Daddy, and like just that whole scene, I'm like, God damn, like, because you could just see it. She doesn't believe in her. She knows this is going to go horrible, and it did. Her laughing at the fact that she feeds on her brother's blood, it gives her that extra little kick. She's playing a piece of music that's so difficult that a person killed themselves because they couldn't get it, and she took joy in that she had. I like all those scenes are so well done. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Doris, Alma, and just sort of that dynamic?
It was fantastic. When you talk about the horror elements of it, like you said, the manipulation, her smiling and laughing, and when you find out at the end, it was really Ursula's idea. Like, it was so well executed, and it was unnerving because it was her smile, her little like smirk that she kept doing. It reminded me of like the Good Son, or
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that was, yeah.
absolutely.
it was just so like unnerving that that actress, the daughter, she should win an Emmy this time around because, or Golden Globe or whatever the TV version is. But
I remember in the
so
spoilers if you've not seen The Good Son.
like 1994,
Yeah, but remember the whole revelation that Macaulay Culkin had killed his brother. He
yeah,
drowned him in the tub. So I don't know if that was on purpose, sort of these dynamics with the siblings, but
Yeah,
with Macaulay Culkin being in the show, I don't know. Maybe it's just a coincidence, but it is interesting.
that may have given them a little inspiration. They started thinking about the Good Son, or maybe they wrote this with that as inspiration, and they were like, "Well, let's get Macaulay Culkin in here. He's a good actor." I could definitely see a connection.
Yeah, and Dora, they did such a good job of making you feel so. I felt horrible for her, because at the end, I mean, tell me how do you feel? She never did anything wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I was trying to think, like, is there any way to look at her and say, this or that? And it's like, no, she was. I felt pretty victimized throughout, or manipulated, I guess. I don't know. And then there's that speech at the end. Ooh, that shit hit when Harry tells her that the reason he kept the family together,
Hmm.
it all stemmed from him and his work, and because he wasn't the greatest writer, he could always fall back on, well, I'm a family man, but I don't need that now. I mean, that was some dark shit. That whole speech.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we mentioned though in one of the previous episodes. We were talking about how he feels the success of his family was tied to his success, which it was. It was kind of like his fallback. Because, like you said previously, he always put his family first, and that was the reason he wasn't as good a writer. So he kind of relied on the success of his family to gauge what his success was. And he finally said, "No, nah, don't need that."
yeah. Plus, it was a good way, like he was saying before, to hand wave his failures. It's like, well, I'm a dad and everything, and family first. And now he is his true self deep down, and like I feel like he'd be this guy without the pills. He's because he leaned into this so easily. Of just discarding his family, and given that confession, is this does this pill make you lose empathy, or does it make you just throw away those social niceties? I guess is the real question.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. It was very yeah, just that speech. It was funny. Both those sequences. Was he sitting on the bed for that? Like he was in the room. Yeah, he would. The two scenes that were just so brutal was when Alma came to talk to her mom, and then him later. And those were the quiet scenes. Those were the scenes where it's just a character talking, and those to me were the darkest, deepest cuts that the show's done so far. Besides what we'll talk about in the end, which was beautifully tragic as well. But yeah, any more thoughts on the Doris story?
Well, yeah, like you said previously, she just really didn't seem to deserve that at all. She was looking for what was best for her family, and they even have the talk where she's talking to Alma and everything, and she says you get used to it, and she's like, she basically explains to her that nothing is worth the price that they're paying, worth these lives, the murders and everything. But eventually, she's just, I guess title of the show, gaslighted, to the point
Yeah.
where she's just like, well, I'm going to give in. They're going to drive me crazy. They're going to keep me here. She's a hostage, and perhaps even sees this as her only way out. But it was surprising that she took the pill. I didn't think she was gonna. I thought that she was gonna wind up, either getting out of there or dying. I didn't think she was gonna take the pill.
Well, and I think too, the the scene where it was showing her trying to interior design, which I don't really understood how that's
I
identity.
laughed at that scene. Like
Dude,
those
I was
drawings were
dying.
so shitty.
Yes, like it was intentional, but it made
Yeah.
me laugh because I was like, they're showing this thing where she's got all these papers out, and the same thing with the Jesus, the I don't remember the Harry when Harry's writing, he's frantically doing it. So before they showed the overhead shot, she's like frantically, setting out all these papers. I'm like, oh well, maybe she was talented. And then they showed the picture, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, that was.
like that. I started laughing.
I did same. Like I don't know if that was intentionally gonna supposed to be funny because it was sort of the reveal that oh no, but she like drew the little couch and it looked shitty. I was like, oh no, you're in trouble.
And yeah, that was one of those moments where like, and she turned so fast is my thing with that. She turned so fast, so she has to be the least talented person we've seen so far because even when we got the flashback, it took the other guy days to change.
He could carry a note, so I guess that helped a little bit. Um, but yeah, so I guess let's go into man the Karen Mickey storyline, which had a resolution, had a full arc going through all the episodes, and it that storyline also made last week's episode more important, going into the background of Mickey a little bit and sort of explaining his involvement in this whole thing. But he's completely embraced the pill now. He's doing the speed racer stuff. I loved all that. He's going to be writing a speed racer universe, and but he wants Karen to go with him because they both care about each other. They've been in the shit together. They've been there for each other for so long, and he wants her there with him, but she just is like, no, I can't. She just refuses to cross into that, to be a murderer, basically, to cross into that world. She just can't do it. And of course we end with the beautiful this it's that moment in horror where you're like, wow, it's so fucked up, but it's also beautiful at the same time. A lot of Italian horror films, Dario Argento films like Suspiria and stuff remind me of this, but the sequence in which she's like, she kills Mickey, she paints her painting, she slices her wrists and walks into the ocean. It's all framed in sort of a way to almost be artistic itself. But what did you guys think of the whole journey of Mickey and Karen?
Well, and we talked about it last week. The episode last week to me hinged on the success of other episodes. And now after, like you said, after seeing those scenes, it made me dislike last week's episode a lot less, because it was important. I think that it still could have been done where it was sprinkled throughout instead of one full episode going back, but it did create, it helped create this scene, and created the importance in this scene. And like you said, it was very artistic. The speed racer, the speed racer stuff, when he showed up in that Ford GT, I was like, holy shit. And then you find out that he's the head of the whole speed racer universe that they're creating, like through movies and TV and everything. I was like, oh, that's cool as shit. So you get behind him. You're super excited about Mickey, although and like you said, he came back and he was like, hey, I want you to be the head of the art. I want you to do it. So he's trying to bring his friends along with him. Even he's not just doing this for himself. He is focused on himself, but he's trying to bring her with him. And so he's trying to do these good things, even though he's still murdering people. He's trying to bring, his friends along with him. And she still stood by her principles and was like, nope. And like you said, the way it was framed, her painting and then killing him and then walking out into the ocean, the whole red tide reference.
Yeah,
But it,
exactly.
like you said, it was all very, like, this episode itself could probably win a couple awards.
Yeah, it was Absolutely. It was a like you said, a beautiful scene and a tragic end for, what was unfortunately your most moral character in the show. Was a drug addict and a thief. Well, then again, I mean, I'll take that back. She did steal babies. So
Yes, yeah.
you know, she did that for Belle, but she seemed to be, other than Doris, the only other character with a conscience to any degree. And I know a lot of people were upset that Mickey had such a abrupt ending after achieving success. But you look at the fact that, well, not only do we have one episode left, but he's met all his goals and everything, and he has a toll to pay. Also, it's like, where else were you going to go with this character?
Exactly. It was one of those moments where a piece of me was like, "Ah, damn! I wish he'd stuck around." But it's American Horror Story. He could pop up next season. Shit, he could pop up in the second half of double feature technically as someone else.
True.
So I mean, you know what I mean. I think there's room for him in this universe, um, and plus it was so like I foresee artwork of those two characters. You know what I mean? Like I see them being a thing in pop culture. Like Karen, the tragedy of Karen and Mickey. Like there's a story there. It was told. It had an ending. I thought it was very well done. Going back to you were. I think I wrote it down. I think it was a Doris line. It's not okay to hurt people to be good at something.
Yeah.
And that's something that sticks throughout. And Karen truly, felt that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of why it's such a tragedy that these two characters, that they didn't both die. Well, I guess essentially Doris died in a way. She's no
Shit,
longer
I would have
herself.
rather died than yeah.
It would have been more merciful than what they did to her. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's kind of like they say, you don't know how good it is to be in a coma because it could be the most peaceful thing ever. I mean, I don't know. Just having no drive other than to eat
Dead birds.
Yeah, I mean, that might be blissfully. I don't know. I imagine it's pretty awful, but who knows?
So I have one. This is a sort of, I guess, an interpretation thing, and I want to know what you guys think, because they don't really explain it a whole lot. Which I'm okay. If they never touch on this, I have no issues with it. But I mean, we're talking about it, so might as well go into it. The fact that the Pell people take orders, or basically, if you're talented, you can basically guide them, order them, and they'll follow your orders. Do you think that that's somewhat just basically a commentary on people that control? I don't know. Is there a message in there? People that control pop culture and stuff, and sort of the sheep that follow them. Or I don't know if there's something more to it, or if it's just like, no, they just need some fucking guys to kill people.
I do think that's the allegory, and it's a good one, and it's a good way to have just sort of also a mirror of the idea of vampires and ghouls that like kind of serve vampires. It was a neat way to do that, and it was something that since the beginning, since clearly they were supposed to be like an analog for vampires. I was wondering if they could do that they were going towards that. It's like, well, they won't harm them. It's like, do they also listen to them? And we got that confirmation this episode. A very cool piece of this lore. But yeah, I do think it has a lot to do with, like you said, the trendsetters, the people that actually do innovate. And then there's those that just literally follow in their footsteps, or, try to recreate what they're doing. And that's just the best they can do.
Yeah, not the sense of the follower, but you have these all group of leaders, and you think of whether it's Hollywood or industry or anything. There's a small group of, I always talk about the 1%, but there's a small group of people that kind of run everything, and that's kind of what this felt like it was trying to symbolize. It there is this small group of people that are able to control the aspects of everything else, and it shows that what they're willing to do and how far they're willing to go to maintain that control.
Well, yeah, because you have your Quentin Tarantino's, and then you have other people who do a similar thing, and you don't mention their name or know their name. You just kind of go, yeah, that was very Tarantino-esque. You're doing a thing like Tarantino, but they're certainly not him, and it's not of the same caliber. It's a pale imitation.
As a fan of vampire stuff, the scene where Karen is sitting on the doorstep. They're surrounding her, and Mickey walks in, and I love his jacket. I love his whole style, and he's calm. He's not afraid. The creatures move out of his way. It was very It was like out of any vampire movie. It was really cool, and the way he walked in, and the way they were shooting them in the background as they're surrounding their prey, and she doesn't want to take the pill, but she does to save her life. Scenes like that were great. We were talking earlier. There's so many scenes in this episode. It's like, man, this is something I would submit for an award. A lot of times they can submit specific episodes, and this is one I would.
Wait, here's Oh yeah, it was a great one. Yeah, but here's the thing. I wonder. You have that scene, and very much we're seeing these ghouls more than ever in this episode. And my thing is, knowing those things are out there, like knowing what you've already done. If you're willing to take this pill, why would you ever not take this pill? I'd be afraid not to take it,
dude. I mean, yeah, absolutely. There's no way, there's no scenario I'm staying in that town as long as Karen and Mickey did. I mean, Mickey had an inn, but not to hell with all that. No way.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Karen was already basically living homeless. She could be homeless anywhere. Why the fuck was she staying?
Exactly.
Yeah. I would have just been like, well, I'm gonna go be a hobo over here in this city where this doesn't happen.
There's only one episode left. Any thoughts on War? I mean, like I said up front, I think we basically have Ursula and the chemist, a showdown of some kind. They both have their own groups. I was thinking, sometimes American Horror Story will do, there's always debate amongst fans. Are the seasons connected, not connected? Sometimes you'll have characters come over, but then we had like an apocalypse season. So it's like, where does it, whatever. But I was like, man, wouldn't it be cool if some of the because we've had seasons with vampires, actual, what if they came in and they're like, hey, assholes, this is our gimmick. I don't know. Where do you think there'll be any kind of twist? There's only one left for this particular arc. Unless it goes directly in, which it could. Maybe there's a cliffhanger and it goes directly into the second half of double feature. But any predictions, basically?
The only prediction I have is that I think the chemist is going to win the little duel, or if she loses, the desert season is going to be like a prequel season to this one. I feel like these two seasons are going to tie into each other, and just by her saying that she worked for the government, she's tried these things. There was a couple little breadcrumbs and a couple little things that were mentioned that lead me to believe that. Now, whether it'll happen or not, or I don't think that the success of the second feature depends on it, but I do feel like the chemist is probably going to win, and then it's going to go back to the military aspect of it, and we're going to kind of segue into that portion of this story.
I agree. I think that'll be the twist. That's exactly what I was thinking, because she seemed to be in over a barrel. This, since from the moment that Ursula was aware of her, Ursula's been one step ahead, and I think it's the sort of thing where, because she seems very smart and everything, and good at what she's doing, but she doesn't seem able to match wits with Ursula in her arena or this type of manipulation or anything. So I think it'll come down to the fact that she eventually goes, yeah, I don't have to compete with you. You're shutting this whole thing down now, and like you said, maybe some troops will come in and round them all up, because potentially even the chemist still works for the military. Or if she doesn't, if she just makes them aware that this, experimental thing that they've created is out there and in this town, and if she just leaves town and sets up shop elsewhere, they'll round them all up anyway, and she'll win.
Yeah, because the chemist, her motivation seems to be research. Like that seems to be it. Like what she's really into the research, and Yeah, that could be a scenario where yeah, the military just comes in and takes everyone out. Like that's possible. Reminds me the end of another spoiler for Return of the Living Dead. At the ending, they're just like, "What do we do?" They call the number to get help, and they just nuke the whole town.
That's what I was getting ready to say. It showed the chemist like flying away in a helicopter while the town's just getting blown to bits.
Because the whole time they're like, "We got to call the number; they'll come help us." And they do call, and they're like, "Yeah, it's an outbreak." And they're like, "Oh, okay, we got you." And they're just like, "Yeah, nuke that shit." So I don't know. But yeah, hell of an episode. One left. It's for this half, and then we'll get into the second half. I don't believe there's a break. I think they'll go straight through. So, any final thoughts on Gaslight?
Well, yeah, I just kind of think, yeah, wouldn't that be a neat way to end the way that flashback began? You know, like we get that ending where everything's taken care of, wrapped up, and we get the chemist checking into another hotel in another town and, setting up shop again.
I could see that, absolutely. Yeah.
This time in Maine.
But yeah. All right. So yeah, we'll see y'all next week, and appreciate everyone listening. If you're not hit the sub button, please do so. And yeah.
Bye.
Bye.